This podcast is brought to you by our Anime Addicts community. If you want to support the podcast and be a great fan of the show, you're going to get all of our exclusive content. As always, you're going to get our hentai episodes. We have a spicy one planned for you after the podcast today. You're also going to get our Hobby Addicts, where we talk about pretty much anything that interests us, from video games to D&D. You can check that out. And we also get our after parties, where we just kind of shoot the shit with you and let you in on our lives and what other things that are going on. You can get all that over at AAAPodcast.com/join or Patreon. We do depend on your support, and it does help out the show quite a lot. So again, if you want to support the show and be an anime addict, that's AAAPodcast.com/join or Patreon.
Get ready! You're about to listen to the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast. Make your anime addiction worse at AAAPodcast.com. And now, here are your anime addicts.
Welcome back to another episode of the Anime Addicts Anonymous Podcast, where our sole mission is still to make your anime addiction worse. On this episode 743, I am your host, Mitsugi. You can watch us live on twitch.tv/AAAPodcast, and I think now also we are live on YouTube as well, unless I am almost a boomer and can't do anything with technology, it seems. So.
No, we are in two places at once as we speak.
That is
impossible.
Live
I know.
Sundays at 5 p.m. Eastern. We're on all the social media, so check us out all over there. And of course, if you want to follow the show the closest, you can get it on the Discord, AAADiscord.com. We're going to be doing a virtual Run Walk 5K on Saturday, September 15th, which is coming up. If you want to check it out, it's at 3 p.m. You can get more information on the Discord. So, today on the show, we're going to be talking about all-time great first episodes in anime, which is a brainchild of my own after I watched a certain show not too long ago. And we're also going to be taking a blast to the past. We're going to be reviewing Gasaraki, the Sunrise anime from the late 90s. Joining us to talk about this and so much more is my good buddy Andrew. Welcome back to the show, Andrew. What is up?
Hello, hello, the self-proclaimed Mecha Maestro. Also followed by Mason.
That's me, who has seen a mecha before, but doesn't know anything about it. But most importantly here, the last guest who is already being asked in our comments how to find the Discord and Facebook group. It's Kazuo.
Well. It's been far too long, and I have to tell you, I am no longer Kazuo. I am Kazuo.
Oh,
the recreation of the former hosts back again to discuss some anime with you guys. It's so good to be here.
you know, you can tell that anime hasn't changed all that much because these jokes are still relevant. It's
I know.
been quite a while.
The more things change, the more they stay the same.
Well, I just want to give a big welcome to Andrew and Kazuo. Kazuo coming back to the podcast. Andrew also not new to the podcast, but as hosts of the podcast. So welcome, guys. I appreciate you being here. We have a fun show today. Let's get it started.
Oh, 大ニュースです。It's time for big news of the week.
Well, more people are in trouble in the anime world. So there's always someone being sued. The world's biggest free adult manga piracy site has been sued by a U.S. company for copyright infringement. So I guess the website N Hentai, which I have never heard of. So
Sure.
I swear I've never heard of it.
Right.
But I will also
Totally.
say I am always baffled by this, like as a thing. Like, people, do you not know that there are like 4 million websites with free hentai videos? Why would you settle for pictures? I don't get it. To each their own, but that's just not me. But This website gets almost 80 million monthly visits. So for those of you that even remotely underestimated the consumption of hentai compared to anime, well, I would like to demonstrate to you a service that is probably more popular than Crunchyroll. That is hentai. Oh my god. And so the lawsuit for copyright infringement is by a company called PCR Distributing. So, and I think I have, if I didn't screw this up, because I'm not very good at technology. Oh, I didn't screw it up. So this they are filing 4 charges, PCR Distributing: copyright infringement, vicarious copyright infringement, which I don't know what the hell that is, and 2 other forms of copyright infringement as well, both contributory and inducement. So it looks like PCR has been this is by the way coming from CBR. So if you guys want to check out CBR, they have a lot of good news on CBR. So I've been using them a little more lately. PCR has been involved in the distribution of adult games since 1998. So I guess that's a little like J-List that it's been distributing for a long time. According to its recent filing, it owns, creates, acquires, distributes, blah blah blah, hentai art and publications from Asia and to the U.S. market. So it looks like they previously filed a subpoena to reveal the identities of the people that run hentai. And it looks like now they're seeking a jury trial to bring them to justice, saying that they will end up having to pay what I can only imagine is beyond bankruptcy-inducing fines, or probably even criminal fines, I assume. So, and they also want PCR also wants the domain hosting service Cloudflare to turn over the site to them, or for third parties such as Google or other search engines to just flat out block hentai completely, which would just shut it down entirely. So, yeah, do you guys have any thoughts? I mean, this is probably big news for people that, actually consume hentai. But as I said, to be perfectly honest with you, if I do that, it's probably going to be on like Pornhub or something like that. It's not going to be on hentai, but
yeah, I'm just really blown away by the total monthly viewers. Like, that's insane. And but it is a little concerning about like you mentioned that they were able to submit I forgot what it was, but to get the identities of the people that are running the site. That's a little bit concerning that kind of your identity is up for grabs like that. But I mean, I guess it makes sense if they are producing, or sharing illegal content. So, it is what it is. You play with fire, you get burned.
I don't know what implication that has. I figure they have to know who they are to sue them. So, I mean, it's probably just part of the legal process that they will know ultimately who is running the site. I'm sure they're not going to dox them, like on the internet or something. It's probably just for legal filings and stuff like that. But
it depends on where I think the suit is filed, I think. Though, to be fair, I think, I looked up PCR Distributing just briefly because of research purposes, nothing else.
Right.
No, but so it might actually be more linked to J-List than you think, because I saw a familiar name there.
Does it start with P?
Yeah. So they might actually. So it might just be like you try to get in on our bag, and here we go. No.
Okay, maybe it is.
I mean, it's gonna go.
I don't fucking know.
This is gonna go one of 2 ways. Either they beat the allegations, and now their site is gonna be hentai, and then below it, too hot for America, and they're gonna make even more monthly visits.
My god.
Too hot.
Or they don't, and these 80 million visits are going to go elsewhere, and these tides of whatever these people are need to unleash cannot be stopped. You can't dam this up, and they're just going to find another website.
I think it's a good point, Mason, and I wonder if it's a little like the Hydra. They say, like, if I was PCR Distributing, or if I was hentai rather, I think I would be prepared for this, and I would probably have all the files all backed up somewhere else, and the minute they go down, they're going to shoot these files somewhere else, and there's going to be like 3 more websites, and somehow everybody will find them, because like they've been trying to shut down like BitTorrent and Pirate Bay and all that for forever, and they have, as far as I can tell, failed. So I don't know, exactly, but
it's because where they're located, so they would just have to set up in the same place as the Pirate Bay, which I think essentially says you can't do that. No, I think it's in like a European country.
Oh, come
actually.
on, where's the rum, baby?
Yeah.
You have no power here, essentially, is what they're saying. So
and
we'll see what happens.
to kind of piggyback on that, I don't know if you guys discussed this already, but recently I know there was a huge takedown of a bunch of illegal anime streaming sites, including a few that I was familiar with, but definitely didn't use myself personally because that would be illegal. But yeah, it was as I understand it, for some people, quite upsetting to try to watch an anime on one of their favorite streaming sites only to find that it had been taken down. So it sounds like there's some serious crackdowns going down just in general over piracy and in the world of anime.
We'll get into that. If you scroll further down the article in CBR, and I feel like I'm getting better at this, showing these things. So it looks like in 2024, Webtoon filed a subpoena to request the identities of over 170 piracy sites that combined for over 100 million page views monthly. That is fucking crazy. 100 million. Jesus, that's like the whole population of Japan, basically, essentially, per month going to these sites. So, yeah, they're cracking down, but don't you feel like they're kind of always cracking down?
Yeah, and I think once you make a alternative, aka a legal alternative that is good enough that they don't need to crack down, which is a lot of what would happen. Like, you can go back to like early Netflix, right? They made such a decently good service that there was less piracy for a while there until it fractured into like a million different sites, which brought back piracy. And it's sort of like with Crunchyroll, you would hope that with the combination of all of these different places, it should be a better user experience to make it worth the money you're spending and make it less likely to pirate anime or hentai in this particular case. Yeah.
And the same thing happened with like iTunes and, Napster and now Spotify and everything. And as far as, people will find alternative means to acquire their entertainment until you create a platform that is easily accessible enough and inexpensive enough to make it to where piracy is not worth their time and energy. So that's what happened with music. That's what largely happened with shows and movies. People just get a Netflix subscription. But now, as Andrew mentioned, as things are fracturing out and as you have to spend more and more money to access, various movies and shows, piracy becomes a viable alternative for a lot of people. So, it's that never-ending struggle. They can keep trying to make it illegal as much as they want, but that's not the way to fight this battle. The way to fight this battle is to give people more and more inexpensive access to these things.
Yeah, just look at Steam. They just provided the service that no one can compete with, and that's why everyone goes to them.
Yeah.
There is another article I wanted to mention, and it's not related, but it was interesting, and I just wanted people to be aware that it existed because I didn't actually know that this existed at all. But there is a documentary about Hayao Miyazaki. It's like the third one. It's on HBO Max. It's about the process of creating The Boy and the Heron, and it seems like a pretty interesting documentary. It's mostly about Toshio Suzuki and Miyazaki and how Toshio Suzuki had to keep Miyazaki in his shit basically when he was making this movie for 7 years. If you read this article on CBR, it basically talks about how, I'm not sure if he was being dramatic or not, but Suzuki's saying things like he's struggling to keep himself in reality while he's working on this movie. Like he's blending reality and the fantasy from the movie world while he's making this, the script and the storyboards and ultimately creating the movie, and how Miyazaki his brain is broken. He struggled creatively, dramatically while creating The Boy and the Heron. And and as we know, this is now the most successful movie for Ghibli ever, pretty much, at least in the West. And it won an Oscar. So, and the other documentaries are super good, by the way. So, it talks about how Suzuki pushed Miyazaki even further into his creativity. It's Suzuki's kind of helping him along, and it just seems like the two are in tight lockstep working on stuff. But so I just wanted people to know, we don't need to talk about it a lot, but because I haven't seen the documentary myself, but could be pretty cool. So if you want to check it out, people, there's it's on HBO Max, and I think all the other documentaries and also the Ghibli movies too are all on HBO Max.
It's not called that anymore. You'll have a hard time finding HBO Max.
Oh, okay.
It's just Max.
Oh my god.
Honestly, that's not the biggest sin here. Being it's a documentary on HBO Max. Lame. Boring. That's for boomer shit. If you tell me there's a thing called Deception and Friendship, tell Hayao Miyazaki and the Heron and hentai, Now that is media I am getting into. That sounds seductive.
Is that some Miyazaki's Toshio Suzuki foot fanfiction?
Fanfic, yeah, that's what I want. Give me the dojins, please.
Oh my god, I just thought of something.
Yeah.
That's how they take down these sites. You just get people to upload legit movies to these porn sites, like legit like Disney movies, and then you get the whole site pulled down.
I mean, isn't that what happened where like your name got uploaded to Pornhub and got like millions and millions of views that way? Like people are just there for a good time. They don't care if it's porn. I just want content, baby.
That's fair.
Give me
what's
that
next?
Sweet content, yeah. Yeah, what's next? Andrew?
All right, so we're going to talk about current 2024 top merchandise. This is an article from CBR, as according to Bai. And I think why this article was sort of suggested and why it's kind of interesting is that if you look at the top 10, there's some interesting things here. Maybe from my perspective, maybe I'm just hitting my anime boomer phase and I'm not with what the kids are doing these days. But so this is what sold the most merchandise. And this counts as, I think, CDs, DVDs, merchandise, mobile game merch, all that kind of stuff, anime merch, all that kind of crazy things. And I'm pretty sure the number one makes sense, I guess. Demon Slayer. Everyone loves Demon Slayer, except for Mitz, apparently.
Hey, now.
I don't love it either, Mitz.
I just don't think it's the greatest thing. Like, I don't have a shrine in my house dedicated to it. You know?
I agree.
It's all right.
Yeah, it's fine.
Number 2, Ensemble Stars, and I think number 3 was My Hero Academia. That one surprised me because I don't think My Hero was really in the public conversation until just like a couple months ago. So it's possible that a lot of people brought it back up. We'll round out the top 10 with Saint Seiya, which is interesting. I don't know what's new in the Saint Seiya world. Windbreaker, which makes sense. Pretty Boys doing
Breaking Wind.
Yeah. Kingdom, which is also interesting. That Time I Got Reincarnated as a Slime makes sense. Blue Archive the Animation, don't even know what that is. Delition Dungeon makes perfect sense. And Black Butler,
Blackwell.
also
wow.
Didn't it get another season? I mean, that's probably the reason why it's on there.
is that it? Okay.
Yeah,
but honestly, none of this merchandise matters at all because I've got the coolest merchandise and it's not merchandise. It is this. If you're for those on screen,
did you 3D print that?
I did not. My friend printed it
that?
for me. It is a Frigimon 3D printed. My friend got a 3D printer this weekend, and he made me this week, and he made me a Frigimon. This is version 5. The other 4 prints failed.
Wow.
But he also, just so he made sure I had something, he made this one at order scale, and he made this one. And for your audio listeners, don't you worry. Just go to my Instagram at Frigimon Fanatic, and these pictures are going to be up by the time this episode goes up, so you can see it as well. And that is the best. This wasn't about getting a plug. It was just, I really wanted to show off this.
Plugger.
Cool.
Who needs anime merch when you have friends?
Yeah. That whole story was just one ploy for him to share his Frigimon figures.
Exactly.
I know this is an audio podcast, but if you want to see it, you have to go to this. Yeah.
Listen, we're on Twitch and YouTube. There's no excuse.
Right.
People on both channels are hyped for Kazuo and his cool Squirtle sign. Oh. And yeah. Welcome to a new age of Frigimon showing off his cool 3D printer stuff. But I think he's got to get the new filaments in his 3D printer so he can put like the buttons and the eyes and like
Yeah.
Give
you just paint it.
Okay, that works too.
Otherwise, you're wasting a lot of filament.
That's fair.
All right. Do we have anything else for the big news?
No, because we got so much other stuff to talk about.
So is that why you broke people's hearts by crossing out that other news story that will now be a mystery forever?
Yeah, unless you subscribe to get our show notes, in which case you can see what I was going to say about Birdie Wing.
I personally am shocked and stunned that you would write that in the show notes. So, yeah, if people aren't able to see this, it's a real shame.
I'm aghast. My sensibilities are out the window. Whatever could it be?
How dare you?
All right. Well,
not subscribe to the podcast.
Yeah, exactly. If you don't subscribe to the podcast, well, you're dead to me.
You're not subscribed. You close your eyes. You're not allowed to see what I wrote. Keep on scrolling.
All right.
Let's talk about the greatest first episodes of anime of all time.
Oh boy.
Yeah, I mean, everybody always wants you to put the of all time on everything because it's like, it's just not sexy unless you do. But I was watching an anime the other day with Pancake, and I did mention it briefly on a previous episode. And I just thought to myself, like, this anime's opening episode is so fucking good that I was just very shocked by how good it was. And I thought to myself, there's probably other shows that have a first episode that contain this much just spot on content that will make it almost impossible for you to not watch the second episode. It could be that the second episode falls on its face, but that first episode will be just make you so rock hard that you will have no choice but to keep going. And I said it on a previous episode. Those of you that don't follow every episode of the podcast, shame on you. But the first one is Outlaw Star. This Outlaw Star, another anime from 1998 that is from Studio Sunrise, not unlike Gasaraki, which we'll review later. But Outlaw Star, I mean, this first episode contains pretty much everything you could possibly hope for in like a sci-fi outer space anime. Essentially, you've got pirates, space pirates. You've got a knife fight in a bar, which is pretty cool. There's car chases where they're shooting like Tau magic at each other. Gene Starlin's like
spiritual bullets.
Yeah, he's loading like magic bullets into his gun, and you know, you've got the dynamic between Jim and Gene. And I don't know how long it's been.
Girl.
The cat girl comes in like way later.
Oh yeah, dang.
Aisha,
It's been a while.
Well, yeah, I'm sure it has been. Yeah, this is like a Toonami special. People probably haven't watched this since Toonami, but no one ever talks about Outlaw Star except me, and I think it's a little underloved. And honestly, this first episode, it just has incredible pacing. It even has like sexy scenes in it. You know, they find an android girl in a fucking briefcase. I mean, it pretty much has everything. It even has like Gene's backstory. You know, where he's like a little kid, wants to go to space with his dad and all that. So they managed to cram like some like background for the characters in there as well. And just Gene Starlin is just a super cool character. I mean, he's got to be up there and probably like the top 100 probably somewhere. And his little sidekick Jim is pretty cool. And yeah, I don't know. It's Outlaw Star. People who haven't seen Outlaw Star, it's not a perfect anime. I think Mason, you mentioned before, it does have like some filler and some trashy episodes in it that are kind of throwaway.
It starts off strong though, so like it's not one of those things where you got to give it 4 episodes to do its thing. Like if you've ever been curious, watch it. It's going to grab you by the first couple episodes, or it won't. But that's kind of an easy barrier of entry.
Yeah. You know, one of my I don't know if you remember, but Toonami back in the day used to do these kind of like commercial stinger things where they would have like the voiceover by was it Steve Bloom? Is that his name? The guy who did the voice. Yeah. For all that, they would have him voicing over stuff and like shots from anime playing. And one of the ones that they had, I think it started like that. It said Space or something like that. And it was primarily around Outlaw Star, but it had a few other anime in it as well. And like the whole thing had a theme of not fearing failure. And it was just like Gene, is that the main character from Outlaw Star?
Yeah.
It was like him talking about his anxiety of going off to space and stuff like that. And I just remember that as a kid being like really impactful, you know, in a way. And so yeah, Outlaw Star is a phenomenal anime, and just like the themes that are in that show, especially for a young person, are pretty powerful.
You know, it's pretty funny you say that, because in an episode we did like maybe 2 months ago, Mason and Caroline were joking about like TV commercials or something, and I was saying there's like a YouTube page that has whole 8-hour blocks of Toonami recorded.
Oh, wow.
And we're complete with the old commercials, and they have
including the one for trains on DVD.
Trains.
Trains.
Like, yeah, and it has that clip where they do that monologue in it, and I played that on the podcast. I have the drop for that.
It's so good.
I'll make sure I include it. But yeah, it's like very emotional, and most of that a lot of it comes from Outlaw Star. So
yeah.
Anyway, we don't have to drone on about Outlaw Star too much. We got like 75 more anime here. So who's going next?
Let's go across the table, Andrew.
I guess we're doing it that way. And I are we doing it in order that we?
I mean, do it however you want, but know that there's a chance we're going to run out of time, because this is like the easiest topic we've ever done. You're like best first anime episodes, and I just made a list of like 40 shows in my head of like I could talk about all of these, and I'm like, we have 40 minutes tops. Fair. Like I need to narrow this down. So however you want, my guy.
I'm going to start with a cheat.
Oh. Well, if your pick is bad, I will ridicule you. I just want you to know that. So.
Oh, of course.
And that goes for all of you, not just.
Your pick is bad, and you should feel bad.
There are no bad picks in anime.
And you should ridicule me, so yeah. Okay, yeah, go ahead.
So I'm gonna go with my cheat answer, and I'm gonna say Suzumiya Haruhi.
God.
But this is if you're watching broadcast order
Okay, my
specifically,
man.
it is the first episode. It is technically episode 00. I think it is a great episode because it is a high school movie that just basically describes the entire plot of the show you're about to watch, but it's very silly, very self-aware, but also has all the craziness of what will happen with the show. And you never actually even get the full explanation till later. And I think it's a great introduction into just sort of like setting you up for where the show could go with some of the craziness and some of the oddballery that might happen. And I say it's a cheat because technically it's episode 00. It doesn't actually fall anywhere. But if you're watching broadcast order, it's the first episode they air, and it's pretty great. Otherwise, the actual technically episode 1 is pretty box standard, romantic comedy high school affair. But that episode 00 actually makes that first episode more interesting because you're like, oh, I see. And then you find out broadcast order is going to do all the craziness, and you're kind of like, this is going to be great. And that's why I said Suzumiya Haruhi, but specifically episode 00, because broadcast order, that is a great first episode. That's what made me watch the show in the first place. I stumbled onto it at an anime convention, and I went, I have to watch this show, and I stuck with it because of this first episode.
Say what you will about that show overall, it certainly was brave. Like that to outwardly troll your audience as much as that show did is a brave move.
Absolutely.
Especially with
I admire almost all the risk that show took across both seasons.
Yeah.
And it did not pay off.
Nope.
It did not.
In some ways, but I appreciate it for that nonetheless. And I think as we get through our list, we'll see that all these episode 1s are good, but they're good in different ways. And Haruhi definitely offers a counterpoint to a lot of the other ones we typically see.
I'm surprised this show only has a 7.8 online because with how big the fan base is, you'd think they would have propped it up like dramatically, but I guess they just don't give a shit as much as like the Full Metal Alchemist crowd.
Well, no, my anime list wasn't as big back then, so I think a lot of people have been told and there's been a little bit of a resurgence, but people have been told it's been great, and then when people go to watch it, they're like, it's all right. And then, they put an all right score. And so, I have nostalgia for the show at this point.
Yeah, at the time, it was monumental.
It does have probably the best rock scene in an anime that I've seen. That fucking like talent show they do in that is off just not only the song, but just like the detail that KyoAni does on the fingers, on
movements
on
and
the
stuff.
guitar and stuff. It's unreal. I've watched it 100 times. It never gets old. Holy shit!
That bleeding guitar intro, is like stared into my brain.
Oh, it's so crazy. Yeah. Anyway, let's keep moving.
Yeah, so I think I need to get this out. It's the obvious pick, but it just was the first one that jumped into my mind. Shinichiro Watanabe knows how to start a show, whether it's Samurai Champloo, Kids on the Slope, Space Dandy. He is so immediately great at grabbing you. Even Carol and Tuesday, which wasn't a phenomenal show, had a pretty strong opening. But I think this podcast would be categorically a failure if we did not talk about Cowboy Bebop's first episode,
It's
which is
unbelievable.
such a microcosm of the show condensed into one episode. It captures the humanity, the humor, the twist, the style, the ebb and flow, the ups and downs, just this hopeful tragedy that the characters kind of resign themselves to. And what you get from 0 minutes to 22 minutes in that show is kind of all of Cowboy Bebop, just distilled into a great, simple to follow story of this gun dueling, drug-toting battle on Mars, and it just has so much personality and heart. And if you don't like episode 1 of Bebop, just stop.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah,
because that does so much.
It's so crazy, but it's missing 60% of the cast of the anime, really. But it's
true.
But if you were just to release this one episode as an OVA and just put it out there, it might be the greatest OVA that anybody's ever put out. I mean, I think this is probably I didn't put it on first because I wanted to go with Outlaw Star. I mentioned it previously, but this might be the best first episode of anime that I think I've ever seen. I mean, it contains everything.
Yeah,
it's up there, and it's not like an Attack on Titan where you watch it and you're like, I need to see what happens next. But you watch it and you just start smoking a cigarette and you're like, damn, that was good TV.
It does a really great job of like setting up the world and like building the main character and creating kind of a curiosity in the viewer about who is this guy and like where does he come from and what's his story and why is how did he end up here? Like
why does he not get beef? Why is it just bell peppers?
The only reason I didn't put Cowboy Bebop on my list is because yes, the first episode is phenomenal, but so is the rest of the show. So to me, it was like, I was looking for shows that specifically the first episode like blows you away, in a way that the rest of the show may not quite.
Might not. And I definitely have those on my list. We'll get to them, maybe, probably not. We'll talk about it. But yeah, that's a fair point. What's the first on your list then?
Yeah,
so it looks like we've got a couple of people that have put this on their list, but for me, I had to go with, I feel like the obvious pick, which is Yu Yu Hakusho. I actually showed this to my girlfriend who's, casually into anime. Like she's not a big anime addict like we are, but I told her, I was like, you have to watch this first episode. You're going to love it, but you don't have to watch the rest of the show because you're probably not going to be, it's completely different. So yeah, that first episode of Yu Yu Hakusho, being introduced to this character and, him just kind of being this like douchey punk, and then the sacrifice that he goes through is, I feel like, just so powerful, and it kind of creates this kind of like with Cowboy Bebop, where it tells you so much about him in such a short period of time. I feel like Yu Yu Hakusho did that phenomenally well, and then of course the rest of the show is still really good. I love the whole show, but it's completely different from then on. It just becomes kind of like a shonen-ish type story with like tournament arcs and things like that. So, but that first episode is far and away, I mean, one of the most monumental first episodes of anime ever.
It's funny? Interesting that you put that, because I think the manga got criticized by having too long of that pre-Spirit Hunter kind of vibe. Like it spent too long on him going to school and his everyday life. And the anime kind of took that, acknowledged that, and kind of made their own condensed version, which obviously paid off really well in your eyes. So I think it's interesting that anime took what it had manga form and adapted it beautifully to the medium.
Yeah, absolutely. The only downside is that, of course, the rest of the show is completely different. So if you start off watching that, sure, don't get used to it, because that's not the kind of show it is. I mean, in ways it is, but not. It doesn't live up to that first episode if that's the kind of thing you're looking for.
What's funny? And this happens.
What's that?
This happens sometimes. I have noticed that on my anime list, I have not said that I have seen Yu Yu Hakusho, and nor have I scored it. So we're
my God.
So we are gonna score Yu Yu Hakusho together right now.
Okay.
And we are going, and I have seen all 112 episodes of this shit. It took me forever to get past the Dark Tournament arc. For my money, I would say Yu Yu Hakusho is like either an 8 or a 9. That's my opinion. Everything after the Dark Tournament is not nearly as good, but up until the end of that shit is fucking gold. So
yeah,
what do you think?
I give it an 8. Solid. It's like a solid 8. I haven't seen all the episodes. I've seen up until the just before the Dark Tournament arc, but yeah, from everything I've seen, it's pretty good.
What are the words that I know when you score things on anime?
So it goes masterpiece, great, very good, or good. So it's either going to be great or very good, probably.
Oh man,
I gave it a 7, but shonen is not my forte.
I mean, I feel like if I'm just looking at the show for what it is, I would go 8. But if I'm looking for its like historical significance, if I'm adding that into, you got to go 9. So it just depends on how you're looking at it.
I'm just because of the intense nostalgia and because it's my anime list. Goddammit, I'm putting it at a 9. Oh
there
my
you go.
God! Oh shit! What just happened?
Yeah.
Now I am one anime closer to catching Mason.
How many anime have you seen on your My Anime
Not
list?
nearly as much as Mason. I am never going to catch our good friend here.
Incredible.
I will
It's
tell
okay.
you. I'll tell you in a second, but I believe it's
Your turn.
It takes a while, but yeah, it's my turn. Oh shit!
Yeah.
It is.
All right. Well, next on my list, and 817 completed.
Jesus.
So, yeah. I mean, you're not that far behind, I'm sure. So.
Yeah, I don't know.
All
I
right.
haven't been keeping track.
All right. So for me, I don't know if anybody else has on their list, but simply because of one particular thing that happens in this anime, I'm gonna go Black Lagoon, episode 1. Black Lagoon episode 1 contains pretty much all the badass coolness of all the main characters of Black Lagoon, and it also has not unlike Cowboy Bebop, although it's not nearly as good, I would say. Well, it's pretty damn good, but it's not. Cowboy Bebop's like legendary, right?
Yeah.
The first episode of Black Lagoon also sits on its own little island, like by itself, as like almost as a standalone. But I'm put this on my list because they come on, a speedboat flies through a helicopter that's in midair. I mean, come on. Come on. I mean,
it is pretty epic.
Yeah, the crew of Black Lagoon is not unlike other awesome like crews that you've had in other anime. And then there's Cowboy Bebop, and the crew from Outlaw Star is cool, and Yu Yu Hakusho. A lot of these like foursomes or threesomes, foursomes that exist in anime, they just have a great cast. Black Lagoon is another one of these that just I'm like paranoid now. I'm gonna check it and make sure I reviewed it. Black Lagoon is another one of these that is just has just a great cast of characters because honestly, Revy, Rock, and Dutch, and I guess Benny is the other guy. Maybe I think
Benny.
This crew is. I especially love Dutch, but he just reminds me of Barrett from Final Fantasy VII. So.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I won't drone on and on about it too long because we got so many more of these. But people that haven't seen Black Lagoon, it's one of the better action anime out there, and it is done by Studio Madhouse, so it's very well done. And most anime fans would love to just have their way with Revy for sure. So that's a bonus. So she's probably
My friend. You would love an hentai. I guarantee.
I was gonna say
You want something funny? Do you want to know something funny? Occasionally, I will go back and listen to old episodes of the podcast just for nostalgia's sake.
Aww.
And in the first episode of the podcast, you talk about Black Lagoon.
The very first episode.
The very first episode, you discuss Black Lagoon.
Full circle.
And his
It all
tastes
comes back
haven't
around.
changed since.
All right, I guess it's back
for
to
better
me
or for
then.
worse, yeah, back to you.
I am going to cheat again because apparently
my God.
my name is Friggy the Cheat today,
Typical
apparently.
Canadians.
So this is
How are you?
thank you for saying that, because this shout out goes to my Canadian listeners out there. You have been heard as a fellow Canadian. I'm calling it the YTV block.
God.
These showed up
You say
on
white?
this is
White?
no YTV. It is
Wow.
youth television. It's a channel that exists here in Canada, or existed here in Canada, where we saw a lot of anime back in the day. It's essentially
Like
our
4Kids?
Toonami.
Okay,
Yeah.
cool.
It did a lot of our Toonami kind of things. So, but these shows all showed up on different networks as well, so we have Digimon, Pokemon, Metabots, and Power Stone.
Oh,
Okay?
nice.
And I'm going to
all
say
of them?
these four. These are 4 great first episodes, some of which are not exactly like how the rest of the show is going to be. And they're maybe not all-time greats, and like they do something very original or very different or very wild and exotic. They are all-time greats in that they are standard bearers for millennial nostalgia in first episodes, right? Digimon is a great first episode. It introduces a ton of characters. They digivolve in the first episode, and it tells you it's going to be something to do with how these kids are reacted. It tells you what the show is going to be about, and the show is basically about that for like the next X amount of episodes. Pokemon is actually a really good first episode, right?
It is.
You get introduced to the world of Pokemon. It is basically different from the games and definitely very different from the commercials that they used to promote it back in the time. You get some action, you get some craziness, you get a heartwarming moment, electricity, literally electricity.
Yeah. You get a tease
Metabots.
to something to come way into the future. Like you see that, what was the bird that he saw? flying?
Oh,
yeah.
money.
No, I'm with you on this. I like where you're going on this. Yeah.
Oh yeah, Metabots starts with a heist. right? You get what a rope battle is. You get Mr. Referee. You basically get the concept for the show. It's high action, high octane. It's wild, it's crazy. You get introduced to all the characters that are going to be important for the next little bit. And it's basically that. And then Power Stone is just sort of like a guilty pleasure of mine. It is a really ridiculous first episode that starts with boxing, fighting, a chase through the city, and then a magical girl transformation. How can you go wrong, effectively?
I'm a little surprised you didn't throw Yu-Gi-Oh into this like little group of anime, because I feel like that first episode also has like a similar energy. Yeah.
It fits perfectly into this. Also was on YTV, so it fits perfectly. Thanks for that one.
No problem. Your move.
Your move.
Yes. God damn it. There's so many to pick from. I'm going to go with Death Note, just because I know people are going to yell if we don't get to it by the end of this thing. And this is such a great opening episode. And I want us to appreciate how much it does. Because in a lesser show, an episode of Death Note would have been learning about Light and learning about how he's really smart and he's such a hard worker, and he gets the Death Note at the end, and maybe if we're lucky, if we're good anime watching citizens, he kills a guy, We are just treated to a show that does not waste our time at all, unlike the rest of the show for a bit. But like minutes into the show, we are getting the rules and the mechanics of the Death Note. And before the halfway point, he's already used the thing. He's killed a man, and we are just plowing through. By the end of the episode 1, we are getting full-on massacres as he's dramatically killing off half the like Japanese prison population. And this is the show that is like, I am hyped, I'm ready for the next episode, I'm so in. And it ends with Ryuk, the Shinigami, like being like, humans are so interesting, which, it's saying this show is interesting. And in a lesser show, that would be so campy and like ill-deserved, but not in this show. You, the viewer, are associating with Ryuk and being like, yes, this is interesting. I am so down for whatever happens next. And maybe it doesn't hold up that well, but episode 1 just is full throttle for pretty much a show about a guy writing in a notebook, and that's incredibly impressive.
Did I miss the part where you said he's doing a massacre while eating chips?
You didn't, because I was too busy eating chips for you to notice. Yeah. But yeah, there's so many iconic moments from Death Note in just this one episode, and just scrubbing through it to like remind myself of like what happened. I'm like, oh yeah, this show absolutely slaps and deserves the hype and acclaim that it had back in the day. So, yeah.
Great pick. Man, I'm really torn here. I want to go with the obvious choice, but something's pulling me towards this other anime. So my next pick is going to be a show that I didn't love the show, but the first episode just completely threw me for a loop. And it's an anime we reviewed on the podcast some time ago. A show called School Live or School Live. I'm still not sure which way you're supposed to pronounce it.
Oh man, Caroline would love this. It's like her favorite anime.
For those that don't know about this show, it starts off as this like cutesy kind of moe story about a little girl at her school just going on, little adventures throughout her day, talking to her friends, just being super, super cute. And at the end of the first episode, so I guess spoilers for the first episode, if you don't want to know anything about this, skip a few minutes forward. But at the end of the first episode, you realize that nothing that you've seen thus far is real. And instead, this little girl has completely lost her mind and is basically delusional about what's going on around her. And what's really going on around her is just a zombie apocalypse, death, destruction. Everyone is just bloody corpses all throughout the schools, broken glass. Like she's completely insane. And it was such a twist that to this day I think about it. And now again, the rest of the show I didn't really care all that much for. It was fine. But that first episode, holy crap, that's a good first episode.
I love it when moe girls go insane. So it just brings a tear to my eye, honestly. Yeah.
So I had to jump to that one because that was just, insane. I did not see that coming at all.
And it's interesting, and I'm just kind of going to double dip here since we both had this on our list, but it's
you did?
similar but different to The Promised Neverland, which also starts with this hyper comfy and cute, like first 15 minutes. Oh, these cute little orphans are all hanging out, and yeah, it's a little strange that they have these like weird, serial numbers on their neck, and they take these weird like barcode tests with harsh lighting. But besides that, it's like a really cute cottagey environment. It's sunny. They're playing tag. It's a good time. And then, as we all know, at the last bit, there's the twist of these kids are being, spoilers, farmed for their meat and organs and brains. And holy shit, we need to get out of here. And we need to leave this place. And it's kind of the same kind of formula of setting up the comfiness and then tearing it all away. And it's awesome.
Absolutely.
I guess we're snake drafting it. But I did want to say before that, I think Japan tends to always put at least a somewhat interesting twist on zombie fiction, I've noticed. So I always find that kind of interesting about Japan in general. Okay, so I'm not going to cheat anymore. I'm going to go to something...
You're going to jump in front of Mitz, though?
Yeah.
Snake draft, right? Isn't that...
Snake draft. No, you jumped in front of Mitz, too.
I know. No, I double dipped. That's different. Go ahead.
It's elder hate, I tell you.
Yeah.
You turned it into a snake draft.
So really, it's Mason's fault.
No, I didn't want to pick that. No, I was double dipping for Kazuo. I get to pick. Go ahead, just go.
I'm gonna go with Cute Earth High School Boys Defense Club because literally it is that first episode is the best episode of that entire show. It is a parody of the magical schoolgirl trope, except for with cute boys. The whole thing is a parody. It's satire. It's making fun of itself. And then it becomes a magical girl show as it goes on. But that first episode is just kind of ridiculous. It's just ridiculous. I love going back and rewatching that transformation sequence because it is stupid. Yeah, and basically that. It's stupid and fun. And it's funny. I looked in the past. It does almost maps on to the original Sailor Moon transformation sequences.
That's hilarious.
But it's a fun show. It tells you what the premise of what an amazing show could be. And I think almost like Cowboy Bebop, if this was just a one episode OVA, it would be one of the best OVAs out there. Because the rest of the show is actually kind of boring and not as fun. And that's what makes it great.
I forgot all about that show, but yeah, you're right. It is completely ridiculous.
I appreciate you making brand new sentences on this podcast by having Cute Earth High School Boys Defense Club and Cowboy Bebop in the same sentence. So that's on you, my guy.
Always be subverting, and you would know what that means if you listen to the Hobby Addicts episode.
Whoa, plug. Okay, mates, now's your time to shine, I guess.
It's like when you pick first in fantasy football, and then you got to go all the way to the end of the second round.
Yeah.
All right, so this is kind of... I don't know. I have reasons. We'll see. We'll see what you guys think. This one's especially for Kazuo, I think, but okay. I'm gonna say Dragon Ball Z, honestly, for great first episodes, and there's a good reason for this. There is so much wild shit that happens in this first episode that you may not really think about unless you really stop to appreciate it. First of all, let's count them, okay? Shall we? First of all, Goku has a son out of fucking nowhere. So there's the first one. Literally, Gohan is introduced, and everybody, including the audience, is blown away by that. Second, Piccolo and Goku team up after being mortal enemies for most of the original series.
True.
Goku's brother shows up from outer space and kidnaps his son, which is also like, what the fuck? And tells Goku that he's a friggin' alien. All of this happens in the span of 20 minutes and just turns the Dragon Ball universe completely inside out in the span of just a few minutes. I really think that for people that watched all of Dragon Ball, like Dragon Ball start to finish, and then you hit Dragon Ball Z, you are literally like put in a blender for about 20 minutes. I mean, put aside the fact that like, you know, they're fighting like immediately in the show and it's cool and everything, but like, that is just a lot of insane plot twists all happening all at once. And after having such an established universe, the way that Dragon Ball does, when you transition to Dragon Ball Z, I'm not sure there are too many other shows where after 200 episodes or so, they just flip you on your head like that out of friggin' nowhere on a first episode. I kind of came to that realization when I was playing Dragon Ball Z Kakarot PlayStation game recently, which is not a super good game, but like it does pretty honestly follow the show. Like they cover pretty much everything, and yeah, when I was watching that, I'm like, this is crazy. Like they're all super shocked about Gohan and all these other twists, and you just kind of, when you relive it and you're a little older, you think about things differently. And it never really occurred to me that they did all that so fast. So is it like the greatest like animated, or is the content the most deep? Like, no, of course not. But it is literally just subverting everything you know about Dragon Ball, especially for Goku, all at once. He becomes an entirely different character immediately. So I think it's pretty cool. Do you have any comments?
I agree with you on that. The only reason that I didn't put that on my list is because most people watched Dragon Ball Z first. And so that first episode is, I feel like if you haven't seen Dragon Ball, it doesn't have much of an impact as far as all that stuff is concerned. So I think the majority of the Western audience saw Dragon Ball Z first and was just like, okay, I guess he's an alien. I don't know. Like, I don't know who this guy is or who, Piccolo is or anything like that. So I do agree, though. If you go from Dragon Ball to Dragon Ball Z, it is insane, the shift. So I'm with you on that.
That's why I love you. Always have.
Kazro, you go next.
Oh, okay. All right. I'm going to go with the one that everybody, thinks we should put on the list because, I think this is kind of a universally accepted great first episode. And that is Attack on Titan. Surprise, surprise.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that first episode, I mean, just being introduced to all these characters and then having them all killed, or just complete destruction and realizing the just how dire the circumstances are and how completely hopeless the main characters are. I feel like that was something that, especially at that time, being in the anime community, I think a lot of people weren't prepared for something like that. And the rest of the show, say what you will about it, I still think it's pretty good. I know it drags in a few places, but I think that first episode is just one of the iconic first episodes of anime, just ever.
It's definitely shocking for
fun.
sure. I mean, you will. That is an episode where if you watch the first episode of Attack on Titan, you're pretty much locked in for the whole season. I mean, for sure, 100%. I mean, it's doing things that have never been done, at least not commonly. So I definitely have to agree. Do you guys want to go through any more comments about Attack on Titan?
I feel like people know.
No, Yumiya.
Yeah,
we don't need to sell Attack on Titan on
known.
anyone. It is a little strange though that it begins with the tall, colossal Titan like peering over the wall, and then they just like forget about it for 20 minutes to make you like not realize it was a thing at the beginning, and you're like, oh, there it was.
Yeah, it is kind of wild that that whole concept as far as like, oh, we are definitely no longer safe here, just kind of gets ignored after a while. But I guess you have to, if you're living in that world, you just can't. I mean, if there's nothing you can do, you just have to kind of continue with your day to day and hope that doesn't happen again. So I don't know.
Yeah, it was like a preview sort of thing. Anyway, okay, I've been talking about too much main stuff. Cowboy Bebop, Death Note, like, come on, everyone knows that. We got to get
mainstream,
weird, critical, the elitist indie stuff. I got to talk about Technolize, which is
oh my god,
such an interesting episode one. This came out like early 2000s, I think.
Yeah.
And this is one of the most, if you had to use like two adjectives to describe episode one of Technolize, it would be unorthodox and oppressive, because there is an intense sparseness of methodical suffering throughout all of this show. Like the first 10 minutes has like no dialogue at all. And even what you do get is sparse in both quantity and information. This show gives you nothing but like not feeling good. It's one of those shows that just begins with setting such a tone that the rest of the 20-something episodes just rides on because of the mood it sets of just, you're like uncomfortable. You kind of just want to look away because it's not like it's brutally gruesome or anything. It's just doesn't feel good. It's like a weird art project that if it ended there, you'd be like, what the heck did I just watch? But it sets up for, the rest of the show to kind of go off of that. And it's so unique in how it makes you feel not well that I love it.
This is one of those anime that I watched because I think it was Lane and this Yoshitoshi
Ergo
Abe,
Proxy is in the same vein.
Yeah. Well, Yoshitoshi Abe has a good catalog of stuff where he's the original creator, or at least the original character designer. So he's touched a fair amount of stuff, and so I kind of followed him for a while, and he's got a lot of good shit under his belt. I mean, he hasn't done anything in a long time. He's probably retired at this point, but that was the last thing he did was the characters for C. Danchi. He's mostly a character designer.
That was not a good show. Do not watch C. Danchi.
Yeah.
Watch Technolize, watch Hibernate Renmei, watch Serial Experiments Lane. Like, those three are absolute goats, and with very different vibes, but they're all kind of, they're so good.
Yeah, there was a time, I feel like, in the early 2000s where we were getting a lot of, like, really mature, adult, technology adjacent kind of, alternate science fiction, like noir shows. And I feel like we haven't, like, that was like a pocket of time where we were getting a lot of stuff like that. And I feel like we don't get that much anymore and haven't for a while.
Maybe you could argue the recent, like, Cyberpunk Edge Runners is kind of in that vein, just with a more, modern take cyberpunk aesthetics versus this, 90s technology. But no, there definitely was that itch that was being scratched back in those days.
Absolutely. Yeah, Technolize was fantastic. That I have not thought about
for
that.
Everyone.
Yeah,
definitely not.
I have. Oh, sorry. Go ahead.
No, I mean it's just not like a lot of other shows. I would watch that just for how unique it is. Honestly, go ahead. You were making a comment.
No. I was just saying it's a show I haven't thought about in a very long time, but I do remember. I think getting like the first couple episodes from Blockbuster. I want to say like way back in the day or something like that.
Wasn't that those were the days, wasn't it?
Those were
just picking it up because the box looked cool, and I was like, all right, I'll watch this.
Blockbuster had a sneaky good like collection of random shit. Like, honestly,
yeah,
I really feel like they did. So
that's how I watched Ghost in the Shell.
Let's start blasting through these. We got a lot to go through, and
I only have one more I'm going to mention.
Okay, we'll do it.
It's another Yoshitoshi Abe. It's Hibernate Renmei. You just mentioned it. This is a good anime from start to finish, but the first episode, the scene where her wings come out is so intense. It shocked me as a little kid. I don't know if you guys have. I know Mason, you mentioned it.
Oh yeah.
So I know you've seen it, but I mean, Hibernate Renmei is a very deep anime, but the first episode is very like mysterious. I mean, there's this like building or a school or something that resembles a school, and all these children with wings are there, and then the girl gets like born from like a weird egg thing or whatever, and she hatches, and then they're all like taking care of her like she's a baby or something, and then her wings come in, and it's just this brutal scene where like, they try to get her to bite down on some wood or something, and then they're like giving her it's almost like a birthing scene, and they're like wiping her forehead down, and then like her wings just explode out of her back, and it's very well animated, and they show it, and they're all covered in like blood and grease and all this, and it's a very like visceral scene in an anime, and the whole anime is good, but I think that scene alone is just super crazy. Like, I'll never forget that fucking scene in an anime. I'll be like 93 on my deathbed, and I'll literally remember that.
Yeah, I remember that scene vividly. I don't know if I can speak to the rest of the episode, but it is a good show regardless. So if it gets people to watch it, yeah, sure, go watch episode 1.
Yeah, it's a good show. What else? Andrew, you got one more?
Yeah, I mean, also just spitballing in here. It's funny, we're talking about all-time great first episodes, and we never actually really defined how we were choosing our first episodes most of the time. I was like at the start of it, which I feel like this can make, in the future, if we haven't done it already, an interesting topic. Just saying, maybe next year. Look out for it. All right. I think I'm going to go with Code Geass as my
G-Boon.
One of my.
All right.
Oh yeah. Honestly, it's been a while since I've watched Code Geass, but I always remember that it starts off as, well, it's a mech show. It has some interesting mech battles, and then towards the end, and then the main character gets involved, and spoiler alert, he basically has a whole platoon of people murder themselves at his command to end the episode. And I think where a lot of fun things that come out of these episodes is either a really interesting twist, especially back then, that was like a really interesting twist on the formula. Like, how is this person going to come along and just like make things more interesting? Or like in like the School Live example or School Live example, you basically take the entire framework you were existing in the first episode and then turn it on its head really in the last moments. And I feel like that twist, if it works, really helps to like make a really great first episode. And sometimes it's just as good as it's just a solid, interesting world building, but really it's for that moment at the end where he basically says, "I command you to kill yourself." And they all go, "Yes, my lord," and do it with the most gleeful expression on their face. And that's just so visceral that you can't help but think that's like a really great way to start the show.
Yeah.
Yeah, and then he does it again later as a goof. Kazo, yeah, one more for us?
Sure. Yeah, you know what? I'm gonna throw this out there just because it had a big impact on me as a kid. And that is the first episode of Naruto. I think that, it kind of like, obviously it's kind of a typical shonen kind of show, but I think what it did for setting up the world and like the creativity of that world and how it all these different nations interact with each other, but also kind of like getting you invested in him as a main character and the loss that he's experienced and kind of the unfairness of his life up to that point. It just really gets you invested in that character, and you really want to see him succeed and do well. And so obviously it would go on for hundreds and hundreds of episodes after that, but I really feel like that first one kind of just looped us in as the audience and got us compelled and kind of on his side so that we would stick with him for all those years. So yeah.
All those years.
all these continuing years.
And really quick, I want to shout out Psychopaths, which Big in Tokyo mentioned on the Twitch chat. Psychopaths episode 1 is killer. Kill la Kill episode 1 is killer. To Your Eternity episode 1 is killer. But I'm going to say last one, Death Parade, which also could be watched as a standalone OVA by itself, which is we're introduced to Queen Deckham, where they play board games and darts and Twister to find the fate of your soul. And it just, similar to Cowboy Bebop, it perfectly illustrates the psychological twist of these high-stake games and brings about the whole show in one neat little package. And it's really darn cool. And yeah, you could say Death Billiards counts as episode 1, but screw you, I'm saying Death Parade. So. And
that theme song, though?
Oh my goodness, what a bop!
Yeah, incredible.
I think the world knew about radio for the first time that day, and so good. This was a fun topic. I could probably go on for another 7 hours, and we shouldn't. We should go to the weekly trivia question and take a break because we got a big review. And it's gonna be scary.
All right, you heard the man. Who's reading this trivia question? I vote for Andrew.
Well, it is in my color. I do vote for blue for the next time we take notes, just saying. But the question is, what form of Japanese dance is featured in the anime Gasaraki?
All right. When we get back, we'll have the answer to that. We'll do some mailbags for you, and we also have that review of Gasaraki. So stay tuned. Don't go anywhere. Hey Anime Addicts, Mitsuki is here, and I'm gonna bring you your anime news break, getting us started off with some new anime adaptations that look like hentai. The manga Chotto Dake Ai ga Omoi Dark Elf ga Isekai kara Oikake Tekita, or very long title of course, or Yandere Elf, a Dark Elf, She Chased Me All the Way from Another World. This manga is going to be made into an anime. It will debut in 2025. The author, Nakano, began drawing this fantasy manga back in 2021 when it was serialized on the webcomic Gamma Plus website. So the third volume is going to released on September 6th. So that was just recently. After Hinata thought defeating the evil overlord and returning to high school in Japan marked the end of his otherworldly adventures, he was mistaken because following him home is this dark elf girl. Just a month after his return, Mariabelle, a dark elf with passionate and slightly obsessed love, declares they're meant to be together forever, and she has extremely large breasts. So, if you're interested in a plot line like that, which is probably more like the end of an isekai that turns into a, I don't know, ecchi rom-com maybe, look out for this Yandere Dark Elf anime coming out in 2025. And also in 2025, just around the corner, is an original TV anime from Studio Sunrise, Maebashi Witches, announced for April next year from director Junichi Yamamoto, who has worked on other cute girl anime such as this one. If you want to check this out, there is a PV available online. The Maebashi Witches is a cute girl troupe, I guess. I don't know. They consist of 5 main girl members. And definitely some cute-looking art, and I'm sure that those of you that love cute girls doing cute things will just be dying at the sight of these 5 cute girls with some pretty nice-looking art doing selfies in a park. So just check it out if you're a fan of the cute girl animes, Maebashi Witches in 2025. Next up, there's another new manga coming out from screenwriter Mari Okada. Mari Okada is probably most well known for working on Anohana, the flower we saw that day. And it looks like they're going to be working together with manga creator Makoto Ojiro on a new title called Sister Regista. Sister Regista is going to be exploring themes of idols and family, focuses on the behind-the-scenes drama of an idol and her family who create her costumes. So there are some images online if you want to scope out what the manga's artwork will look like. So that is going to be interesting. Another look at the world of idols from behind the scenes and how it affects them and their families, you know, when you're not just watching them dance around on stage all gloriously. So we'll have to check out this Sister Regista when it does release. I'm not sure exactly what the timeline will look like, but look out because there is going to be a new manga coming. Next up, the manga Sousei no Onmyoji, or Twin Star Exorcist, is going to be ending its 12-year serialization. So this manga ended in Jump SQ's October issue on Wednesday. So there's going to be no more of this property. 134 chapter run marks the conclusion of this nearly 11-year span for this manga, which means that you're going to be getting probably even more content for it, I'm not sure, but a 50-episode television anime was produced by animation studio Pierrot, which aired from the spring of 2016 to the winter of 2017. It was, of course, on Crunchyroll, etc. So we'll have to see if more content comes out for this, but Sousei no Onmyoji, it has ended its 11-year serialization. This is Mitsugi, and this was your anime news break, and now time to get back to the podcast. So you're at the gym, feeling great, and looking great too, I might add. That is until your favorite podcast ends. Now, without your headphones, you're suddenly lost in the wilds of Meatland. Oh! Don't get lost in the wilds of Meatland. Get the AAA Podcast extra content. We'll help you gain some fun times with our hobby addicts, after parties, and hentai episodes. Nothing gets your blood pumping quite like hentai, and nothing helps the podcast quite like your support. So head over to AAAPodcast.com/join or Patreon to support the show. Again, that's AAAPodcast.com/join or Patreon. Oh! Bro, sounds like you need a spot from the AAA podcast. Welcome back to the podcast. Mason's dancing.
That's what I do worst.
MD Geist OST still not licensed. Thank you. What
Incredible.
form of Japanese dance is featured in the anime Gasaraki? The answer is
No.
no. N-O-H.
No.
No. No, it's not right.
No.
Who's on first?
Yeah. Yes.
All
No.
right.
No. Yes.
All right, so we're gonna get to that
No, it's
review
on
here.
second.
Oh my god, I will kill you all. All right, so we're gonna get to that review here in just a second, but first, as we do every week, we have mailbags. Let's get to it.
It's time for an almighty anime mailbag. Anime. Anime. Anime.
Mailbag. Bag.
Oh my. It just all comes back to me.
It's in your bones at this point.
Yeah,
It
it's in
is.
your blood. It's in your soul.
It's in my DNA.
Yeah. All right. If you want to leave a mailbag, it's AAAPodcast.com/mailbag. Can you believe that, Cosmo? It's still the same link.
Incredible.
Incredible. Why change something?
Is the
that
Facebook
works?
still the same link, or is that? Sorry, we already did that joke.
where is
Moving
the
on.
Yeah. So, the first mailbag is from Erratic. Erratic writes, "Hey everyone, my question is if you could have a music album adapted into an anime or a manga, which would it be? Two that I would like to see are Pink Floyd's album The Wall and 21 Pilots album Trench. Thank you all for making our anime addiction worse." Well, you're very welcome. I'm not a big music guy, like as far as, popular music goes, but I said Hybrid Theory, which is Linkin Park. Not only is that album really good, but there's a ton of anime all through that album's music videos. It was pretty obvious that somebody in that band was a huge anime guy because there's at least 2 music videos, or maybe even 3. One of them's flat out in anime style, and one of them has like all sorts of Gundam figures and stuff in the music video, and that is not an accident. So, those guys would probably be totally down to just have the whole friggin' album's music videos be one big anime. So,
Yeah.
for sure.
I'm a little surprised you didn't pick what I had in mind. The Coheed and Cambria albums.
Oh, that's true.
Yeah, because those
I
are
think those-
actual concept albums that tell a story.
Yeah, that would make for an amazing anime.
Oh, that's
I
why
mean,
you're here, Kazuo.
Yeah. And Keeping Secrets, what else? Good Apollo, Second Stage Turbine. There's a bunch of great albums that they have that all tell a cohesive story that you could turn into an anime.
I mean, they're already
I feel like
adapted in the comics, so why not?
There you go.
Yeah, for sure.
I
So that's my pick.
I
since you
come
didn't
at
take
this
it.
from the. So this is. I think this question is based off of what, like Interstellar 5555, right? Like the quintessential anime concept album movie, anime movie. I feel like for a lot of these, I would go with a similar concept, something that is predominantly instrumental, with maybe not too much words, and that way the anime studio can kind of come up with what they feel like ties this whole album together in their own way, shape, or form in conjunction with it. I feel like something with minimal lyrics, lots of instrumentals. Probably just another Daft Punk album, if I'm being honest. I don't have one, but just like do it. It worked the first time. Why not again?
Yeah, I didn't have a good answer to this. I just picked all my favorite concept albums that I think have good stories that are interesting, but like I don't need this music in it because it's all brutal metal stuff. So nobody cares. What's the next question? It comes to us from Don Chu. I go to tons of anime conventions throughout the year and host panels. I'd love to know if you guys have any panel ideas. Serious, crazy, adult, anything goes. What would you guys do if you had a panel?
I mean, I've done a ton of panels at cons.
True.
One of my favorite panels was one of the ones that I did with you, Kazuo, and you were, I think, totally hammered during the.
Oh yes, I remember this.
Yeah. And Kimiko was there,
was a
and
good
she was.
time.
I think she was hammered too.
Oh,
Was
wait,
it
so-
box wine? Was it?
Kimiko and I, at a certain point, decided to stroll on down to the local grocery store
Yes.
and pick up these little like individual wine things, like these box drinks that look like a Yoo-hoo. And we didn't realize just how strong they were. So we bought a bunch of them. And we're just rolling around the con drinking it because nobody knows what it is. It just looks like like a fruit drink or something, like a fruit drink box. And we got pretty hammered in the middle of the day at this con, and then went on to host a panel. So that was fun.
So that panel was fun, including the guy that I think tried to fight you in the middle of it. I can't remember exactly, but I always thought it would be cool if somebody would take imagine if you put a billboard like a sandwich board up in front of like the con's entrance with a QR code, and the QR code allowed people to vote for their favorite characters. And then you could have like a panel where you would reveal like the tournament outcome of who people's favorite characters were. And you could literally like do the favorite character tournament of the entire anime convention as selected by the people at the con. So that's kind of a borrowing from that panel idea that I think we did, Kazuo, because I think it was like we did our anime Oscar picks or something. So it was
okay, yeah.
But and I thought it'd be cool if people in the panel room could pick, and they could like do it on the spot on their phone. But that would take forever and probably be logistically difficult, and you would have a really small amount of people probably compared to the whole con. So, but if you put a sandwich board up at the entrance, you might have 1,000 more people vote, and that would be kind of cool to have people see the outcome of like their selections. So I thought that was kind of a cool idea. Hard to pull off.
Then what you do is you find people in the costumes of those characters and make them fight to the death.
Yes.
That's the move.
Brilliant.
Oh my God. Yes, definitely. Any other ideas?
No, we do podcasts, not panels. That's why you're not stealing our secrets.
So
I
used to do panels a bunch before I got super busy. I actually help run an anime con up here where I'm at. And in case you didn't know, I'm also Canadian.
What?
I know, it's wild.
Are you serious?
I know.
Disgusting.
I mean, I say this as preamble to essentially when I used to do this. When I used to do these panels at the Comic-Cons, which had to be a little bit more general audience, I basically came up with this ingenious way to say, I'm just going to talk about anime I want to talk to, and I called it, I'd have a poutine with that anime guy, because that just made it a silly title. And honestly, that's all you sometimes need to have a panel, is just a fun, silly title. And then you get to talk about whatever you want, right? Because I used to just do like Digimon panels, tokusatsu panels, all that kind of stuff. But then I'd have this panel where I'm like, I'm going to tell you to watch anime that I want you to watch, and I'm just going to call it something silly. And then the core concept is, I would like to have poutine, which is a Canadian dish, with these anime characters. And then I would talk about why they're awesome because of the show that they watch, and then hopefully you go watch that show. It just used to be called Anime You Should Watch, and then I'm like, I should probably come up with a better title for it.
Yeah. You could call it putting you on to good anime. No,
that's a good one.
It's a little
too rich, but it's good.
That, and I hate how easily that came to you. I'm so jealous.
He hasn't lost a step, folks. He's still got it.
All right. Anything else?
No, we got a big boy to talk about.
Yes.
Oh yeah.
All right, so we are going to be reviewing the fall 1998 anime Gasaraki, which is a selection from our Patreon. So thank you to our Patreon for supporting the show. You guys are awesome and a big help, and we appreciate you very much. So much so that we are jumping back into the past to talk about Gasaraki. So I will say we do have a section on this document where it says where to watch. And I'm just going to say everyone else has probably had an easier time than me because I attempted to watch this while I was working throughout the week, and I have never, ever in my life had more trouble watching an anime than this one. I had the most of the streaming sites didn't work. I downloaded the episodes you guys uploaded, and my work laptop wouldn't let me download them.
Oh my gosh.
And then finally, when it did let me download them, it wouldn't let me put it into English or put the subtitles on. So it's like, and literally, it was just a battle the entire time. I think it took more time. I spent more time trying to figure out how to watch the damn show than actually watching it. But so there's nowhere you can watch this. It is available nowhere, to my knowledge. So good luck. BitTorrent, or maybe go on eBay and get some DVDs for like $1 probably. They're probably not very expensive.
Go check it out in hentai before it gets pulled down.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah, there's gonna be some coup guy like inside the mech sex scenes.
Yeah, there's a lot of cool guys.
So the synopsis, as we have it on the document, in the modern era of the 2010s, there's the series is formed around political narratives that concern a fictional war between the U.S. and Belgistan, which is a fictional country that is pretty much just the Middle East, I think, given the name. And there's an influential Japanese family called the Goa that have a bipedal weapon called a TA, tactical armor, that is essentially just what you would think of when you think of like a mecha, like a Zaku or something like that, that they're using in combat. And they, throughout the show, they go so far as to like sell the usage of these weapons to different countries, et cetera, et cetera. So political intrigue ensues, but there may be so much more to it than that I don't want to spoil for you right now. But done by director Ryosuke. Is this for real? Ryosuke Takahashi? Is that for real? Is that really his name?
Yep.
Did anybody notice that that's like one of the main characters from Initial D?
That's right. One of the Takahashi brothers.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Oh my God, I didn't even put that together.
I thought that was just like an error. So this guy has directed Bakumatsu Kikansetsu Irohani Hoheito, which I don't even know what that is. That's an O&A from a while ago. Votoms. So people know Votoms. I think it's a fairly...
The Fable, which is currently airing.
Flag, The Fable, Ozma. So the Cockpit. There's a fair amount of stuff on here. Of old and new. This guy's obviously been around for a while, and there's a lot of credits. This is not an inexperienced director. I'll just say that.
Yeah.
For sure. And this guy is pretty old. He's about 80 years old now. He's 81. So good for him. Moving on, Studio Sunrise. So this is an original anime from Studio Sunrise. It came out in 1998, which to me is like the heyday of anime, and probably Sunrise too. So jumping right in, expectations. I'm going to put Kazuo on the spot.
Yeah.
He's back after long last, and makes me feel happy in my pants. Yeah.
I'm so happy to hear that. I'm not wearing any pants personally, but I'm glad that you are. So my expectations going into this, one, I mean, I love 90s anime. That's where it all started for me. And I do enjoy, mech shows, especially ones that are realistic and have like military stories to them. And then of course Sunrise, great studio for that kind of thing. So, that being said, I hadn't heard of Gasaraki before. And so with that, I was a little unsure going into it. It didn't have a great score on my anime list. So I was just kind of like, okay, I like the studio. I like the genre. Doesn't seem like it's that much, like there's not that much love for it out there. So my expectations were kind of tempered, I guess I could say.
Okay. Tempered expectations. Mason?
Little to none. Really hadn't heard of the show, hadn't heard of a lot of people talking about it. Just kind of the general vibe I got was kind of like mecha fantasy, maybe. I just really had no idea what I was getting into, except that it was 25 episodes long and just had to watch it.
All right. Last but not least, Andrew.
So yeah, it's mecha. I'm like, okay, I like mecha. Let's give it a shot. I didn't really know anything about it going in. I guess you could say the most I've known about this is that I saw the covers of the DVDs at like FYE one of the days back in the past when I used to look at that kind of stuff for anime, or the odd thing here or there. I had heard the name Gasaraki before, but I have had no clue what it is, and I will tell you that image on my anime list is a lie.
Honestly, didn't know anything about Gasaraki going in, and having finished it, I don't know if I know much about it now either, but...
True.
What is it about this image that's a lie exactly?
They have you believe that is the main mech for the show, That is
Do
a
you think
lie.
that mech is going to be a big deal besides just some
I got you.
no-name weird off
That is-
side thing for a couple
So
episodes?
it's a cool looking mech, and you're like, oh, I feel sad because it wasn't in the show as much as you wanted. Is that what you're saying?
Well, that image makes it seem like that mech is like the main mech. That mech is not the main mech.
No.
It is not. And that's a way cooler design. That's a cool design, by the way, for that mech suit. I still like the other ones, but I think that that's a really cool design. And so I was like, oh, it's going to be kind of like this, from this image, kind of like this feudal, like kind of mech fighting thing. And it is definitely not that at all. So
Okay, I can see that you have that your feelings were hurt a little bit, and we're gonna get that. We're gonna talk through it together.
Let's get to the bottom of this.
So I didn't know jack shit about this anime watching it, but I was turned on by a couple things. First of all, I think I pretty much grew up on ADV films. I don't know if people know if people remember ADV films at all.
Oh yeah.
But ADV films was like half my childhood, and they went out of business in 2009. But this list of anime that they put out is awesome. So there's a lot of good shit on this list. Everything from Razafon to Fullmetal Panic. Obviously Gasaraki's on here. They've got Bubblegum Crisis. I mean, it's a long list. It's hundreds of shows long. And I'm pretty sure that I saw trailers for Gasaraki over and over and over again watching ADV Films animes on DVD. And also, besides that, I mean, it's from the late 90s, which to me is one of the better periods for anime. It's a mecha show by Studio Sunrise. And let's be clear, Studio Sunrise is fucking great at drawing mechanical shit. They just are. And they are pretty much who I want to do a mecha show from the 90s. So I actually think that going into this, I saw the scores on my anime list, and they're not great. And I thought to myself, well, it's probably just because it's a 90s show. It doesn't look very good. People don't even like mecha anymore. And so I figured, well, that's probably why. But I essentially had some high hopes because I think the pedigree of ADV films for myself, for nostalgia, and then a 90s show from Sunrise that's mecha, to me was like, I think I had some hopes for it. I was pretty excited to watch it, and I remembered the name, so that was kind of, it was interesting. I was looking forward to checking a box from my of shows that I knew of that I hadn't seen, and there's a lot of those. So of course, but let's get it.
So many acronyms in this episode: ADV, FYE, PCR, CRB, DVD. We're laying it on thick. Kazuo, go ahead though. Sorry.
Yeah, Kazuo, recommendations. Would you recommend this?
So, man, that's tough. Part of me, I want to say yes, but I don't know if I can, because I think the things that the show attempts to do, it doesn't do any of them well. Like, there are a few things that it tries to do. It tries to tell a story of like this kind of like military conflict with all of this like in-depth lore about these nations and these corporations that are getting involved with them, and it felt like they got so caught up in wanting to talk about that they didn't think about how they could do that in a way that was entertaining for the audience. I think the show is also very derivative of Evangelion. It really feels like they saw that and were like, oh, we can maybe tie in some sort of mysticism, except instead of Christianity, we can tie in, was it like Hinduism? I don't know what religion it would be.
Shintoism, I think, maybe.
Shinto?
Yeah.
We can loop that in instead. And so it just feels like they were trying to do all of these things and didn't do any of them particularly well. So yeah, I don't know if I can recommend this to someone. I feel like there's so much more out there that does all of these things better.
Andrew, how about you?
I would recommend this show
Ooh.
if you do a podcast on anime, if you do a podcast on 90s anime, if you do a podcast on mecha, if you do a podcast on weird stuff from the 90s, that I would recommend that. Or if you just are bored and have seen too many animes and just want to watch something random. Overall, would I seek this out if you are a particular type of mecha fans? No. Would I say seek this out if you're into esoteric discussions on life? it doesn't give you that really. It's a show that exists. I wouldn't recommend it it's not bad, and we'll get into it more, but I wouldn't recommend it particularly. And I do have a Blade Runner theory, but we'll get into that probably in spoilers.
I want to see that quote on the box set for this. It's a show that exists. Andrew, Anime Addicts Anonymous.
It's one of the anime of all time.
Mason, how about you? Would you recommend it?
This show is so good so often. There's 100 little moments where I was really vibing with it. And what the show is so unique in is that at the same moment, there's 100 other things that I am not jiving with at all. Like, this show is so good and so bad simultaneously that I was kind of blown away. And this, Kazuo kind of talked about it. This is a tale of three parts. You have the real robot with mech military scenes of fighting and different, how they move through the environment and do the roboting. You have this like spiritual Shinto resonance with ancestors and mysterious powers and kind of how that plays into the goals of the family and how that feeds into technology. And you have this like domestic and international political maneuvering where they're talking about wheat harvesting and how that impacts the rioting of people in different districts. And
oh man.
The show bundles all of these three parts together and takes a really big bite of it. And it's just too much of a mouthful to really enjoy most of it.
Are we still talking about wheat?
We're sorry, this is all wheat
bundles
metaphors
it
there.
and takes a bite of it.
And I kind of get the Eva reference like at the end where you could see they were taking from inspiration, but it feels very much its own thing for better or worse. And I really, truly enjoyed the first third of the show. I think it did a lot to really pull me in. But as I think we'll talk about, it just kind of outstayed its welcome and wasn't very entertaining. It's a mouthful both in its themes and just it's very wordy. It's very dense. You cannot second monitor this show. It will just blow by you. And while it was ahead of its time in a lot of ways, it was more burdened with overloaded ambition than I think putting out a really, nicely compact package of ideas or topics. So it did some things well. We'll talk about it. We'll talk about why it didn't do so well. But let's get into spoilers.
Oh, no, I got to give my recommendation.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I thought you already... I'm sorry, my guy. I'm sorry.
Wow, just forget it.
The review
like
before
that.
the horse.
Yeah, cut me down. I mean, I know I'm old, but no, just kidding.
Yeah.
So,
no respect for that.
I'm not 40 yet. We're working on it. So I want to recommend this anime so badly. I'm so biased about so many things about this show, but I just don't think very many people will enjoy this anime. Honestly, it's very unfortunate, but I really think that's true. It really is a show that will appeal to a very specific person, but for that person, I think that it's going to be amazing. But I don't think there's very many of those people, and I don't think I know very many of them. So I think that this show's downfall essentially was that it's just too difficult to follow. I think that's really the issue. I realize that, all the stuff with the no masks is very interesting, and, the artistry of, Japanese theater, et cetera, and the history of it all. But I think that I kind of arrived at my own... I was kind of picking through the wiki at one point, and I was like just looking up. I was looking up a term that they kept saying, and I was like, "What is this?" So I typed it in, and that led me down one of those rabbit holes where you keep clicking links. And eventually, I came to the realization that all the dancing, and this isn't much of a spoiler, all the dancing and stuff, at least unless I missed the point completely, is just a way to get into the friggin' mecha and actually use it.
Well, not even the mecha, the kugai.
Well, that's what I mean. That's what
mecha.
I mean. That's what I mean. Like they're trying to harness this kugai, but to me, that's just basically them trying to pilot it and use it to their mean. And I was like, so all of this like complexity, all the science, the dancing, the portal, all this crap, it's all just basically that concept. And so when it all boiled down to that, it became interesting to understand. I do love the animation of this. I love how old it looks. I think that some of the anime cells could be pretty neat. So I really appreciate the hand-drawn human nature of the drawing, and of course the mecha is just neat in general. And some of the combat scenes were cool. Like I really like watching the tactical armors fighting that tank battalion, like in episode 5 or 6 or whatever. You know, that was well done. You know, he's like, you know, they're given orders and they just can't counter these tactical armors. And then the berserker scene with the coup guy that comes out later in the middle of the show, that was great. But I mean, all in all, I was just kind of baffled by how important they think these coup guys are, because maybe they were badass in the 1400s, but if you're gonna pull a mech robot that's real robot and put it in modern era, bro, they're just gonna fly a fucking jet over that thing and just tomahawk missile that thing into oblivion, and that's gonna be the end of it. They're gonna.
I mean, they tried that, it didn't work.
I mean, well, but it would work in reality. Like, come on. Like, they would just aircraft carrier laser that fucking thing from the shoreline and it would be over. So I just don't think a mecha is really going to be competitive against modern technology. And I think it's kind of funny that they were so hell-bent on summoning, like, something that they were using in the 1400s. Like, I guess it would have been really, really useful in, like, the Tokugawa era. But in the modern world, they would just... There's 100 ways they would EMP it, yeah. Like, or they would figure it out. It's just one fucking robot. So I don't think there's any mech robots that are real robot that really could be that big of a threat. So aside from that, Yushido was he's not a very strong character, and definitely not enough to carry the show.
No.
Yeah, not at all. And neither was Miharu. She wasn't very good. And if you watch the dub, his Yoshido's little sister Misuzu, all she does is scream "Big Brother" the entire fucking show, and it's even Nene's voice from Evangelion, and I'm like I don't know who the dub actress is. I'll look it up, but I'm very nostalgic about that like voice because I've heard it in so many different roles. But like all she does is scream "Big Brother," and I'm just like, God damn, like just go have sex with him and be done with it. It's anime; it'll happen. You guys will you'll just find out your step siblings anyway. It was Hilary Haig. Yeah, exactly. She's really good as an voice actress, but she seems like she's still doing work. That's pretty cool. She's got a ton of shit. Anyway, you guys want to head into spoilers?
Yeah, please.
Spoilers are coming. Oh my god.
Oh my god.
Are we in spoilers? Are you guys here?
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
We're in spoilers, guys. You have literally 0 seconds to get out because we're about to spoil some stuff.
I know all these people are planning on watching Gasaraki, so just you know.
I do want to say quick thing. One, they did actually show that Mitz is right. They did in like the last couple of episodes, a plane basically wrecks the guy until he goes supernova. And then 2, I thought they weren't related and that he's basically some vassal that they're stuffed like, memories into.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, he was.
Yeah, they're technically not related, and their whole dancing thing is not so much to get into the Kugai, which it is. It's to summon Gasaraki itself, which is the greater power that is the title of the show. But
you know what I mean, though. It's not that
I know what you mean.
Yeah,
if you want to make a realistic robot, you're gonna have to subject it to the fact that it's probably gonna be fallible to modern technology. But that's not really the issue of the show. The issue is the characters. And I think
100%.
There's one thing we agree on. Let's talk about the negatives, which is the characters to me, which are just so much lacking in character. Not only to the very mechas that they pilot. I was way more invested in the mechanical design that Sunrise does so well, and we'll get to that. But just the design and the writing simultaneously just leave a lot to be desired. And I know, Mitz, you were complaining about the younger sister is just going, Big Brother in the dub. She was just the same way in the sub.
Yeah.
Except in one scene, which is the one scene you would expect her to do it, which is when she and the military captain are like looking. They're running through the woods trying to find her big brother. And they finally find him after like scavenging for hours. And you know what she says when she sees her big brother? Finally, after searching for him all this time? Nothing.
I love when you do that.
The whole season is her going, Big Brother, where are you? And then she finds him and says, okay, cool, located. It's like,
located.
That was the one time you were allowed to say that. True. don't know.
amazing. Yeah, I think that main character, the male
Ichiro?
lead, yeah, he was he. I know we chatted about this a little bit in the Discord, but like his whole character just had none of the qualities that make a main character compelling and interesting. Like he reminded me a lot of like Rey from Evangelion, if we're
Yes,
kind of making those
absolutely.
comparisons.
His hair looks like Ray's, just brown.
Like he was just completely dry and had no personality or no desires. Like nothing. There was nothing interesting about him. And to have him be the main character, I didn't even like. He's the main character because they make it clear. But it's like if you didn't know that, if they didn't tell you he was the main character, you'd be like, oh, it's just who's this random guy? Like he's nothing. He's
So-
of no consequence.
I kind of like that he has no character because he is so much treated by a test subject, by his family, by these corporations, by the military. Like he is just used to being a tool, and that's why he turns into that Ray type character of having no motivation. And that's where having his younger sister call out to him as a sibling is supposed to like kind of humanize him in a way. But I just don't care. Like he is so flat. And
Yeah.
there's like a scene at the end where he passes by the blind chairman who's kind of like leading the Japanese government, and they're supposed to be like, oh, look at these two mega powers are passing each other in a way. And I'm like, I don't care. Like they just fall flat because they decided, oh, let's just the Shinji was really annoying because he wasn't getting in the robot. So let's take out all of his personality and just constantly have him jump in the robot all the time. People will love it.
Yeah.
And it just doesn't work.
Yeah. Speaking of that character, the blind guy, there was also like some troubling I don't know, like perspectives, like
Ideals?
political opinions and ideologies that they were pushing forward in the show, and especially surrounding that character. That it was like, I don't know, it felt. I was unsure of what message they were trying to send, and it just seemed troubling.
There's really no good character. Like the only character you can cheer for in the show is just maybe the soldiers for doing their duty. But either way, like that's not a great like wow. They're trampling a mob of people because they were told to suppress the riot. Like I don't feel great cheering for. Like
they tried early on with the girls, like the defense force characters. Like some of the girls were, they're like, oh, I seduced him with my cute sexiness, and they're like doing their poses and all this. And I feel like they took a crack at it with a couple of the characters, but they weren't the main characters that stuck around.
Exactly.
So
right.
I feel and I think Mason, I think you were spot on your notes. Like I really think that is evident in the fact that the first third of this anime is really the best part of it. I think it kind of
so good.
It kind of peaked when they're like the jets are chasing the cargo ship, and they literally dangle the mech out of the ship with like a cable when he's shooting at him in midair, and like that's fucking cool. Like it is.
Episode 7, which is this entire like race to take off. It's just a plane on the tarmac trying to leave. It's one of the most intense, like gripping episodes.
Yeah.
Where you're like, get off the ground, and like people are like kind of sacrificing themselves by like trying to debate with the foreign colonels. Like that's such a great scene.
Yeah, it's cool. Yeah.
And it's a funny scene though because so much of the dialogue in the show goes by blitzkrieg fast. Like it's very dense, it's very wordy. There's a lot of throwaway lines, even to like real life events. Like, oh, this is just like the Bay of Pigs event. Oh, this is just like this, and it's like it's kind of hard to keep track of everything, except in that one scene when they're flying the plane, and they're like, oh, we can't go this way, and they're like, but we're doing a UN approved air flight. And the next guy like walks into the room, and he's like, "What's going on? We're being targeted, but we're doing UN-approved air flight." And then like it happens 3 more times, and you're like, "That's the thing you like hammer home is that they're doing a UN-approved air flight." Like,
yeah.
Other than that, though, I like the dialogue. I like some of the ideas at play. I just don't like the characters that are saying these things.
So I think something interesting about the show. Sorry, Miss. I think something interesting about the show. I just kind of realized as you're having this conversation, and I think about how disjointed it is. I think this was actually written as a 50-episode show, because that was actually not that uncommon back in the day for Sunrise Mecha at the time. And I think what happened is that he was told you're only getting 25 episodes. And instead of just condensing his story into a more cohesive 25 episodes, he's like, let's just condense it all and just do everything I want to do in 50 episodes.
That does feel like you're right, I think, because there's so much happening. Oh.
Yeah, because like Symbol disappears part of the show, and the origin like those like military characters feel like they were like a lot of the early parts of the show is developing them. They feel like more realized, like especially the women ones.
Yeah.
The family feels like it was supposed to be a bigger mystery for a much longer part, which is why they sort of show up as more evil early on and then sort of like extend, but you barely see them enough for it to actually play into the characters. I think you also see it in a lot like what feels like the Chinese arc, but they're actually still in Japan. And they go to like they go to Kyoto, but it feels like they're supposed to be Chinese by all the naming conventions for some weird reason. It feels like that arc is also shorter, like sped up, because you're supposed to like fall in love with these characters right away. Like the one guy, it seems like he's supposed to be like a cool character, and it feels like we just sort of end up in Kyoto. And I know I fell asleep a lot while watching the show at certain points, and it feels like, and I thought I missed stuff, but then I would just be like, oh, I didn't miss anything. You literally just jumped to Kyoto, and now they're here.
It moves simultaneously too fast for 25 episodes and too slow, because so much of the plots are just Yushiro gets kidnapped and then he runs away, and then he gets kidnapped and he runs away, and he gets kidnapped and he runs away, and it's just like trying to find the shell game of where is Yushiro hiding today, and then they bring him back for a token mech battle. And the questions that we're asking throughout the show is like, early on she's like, don't unleash the terror, and he's like, what's the terror? And she's like, okay, I'll tell you next time, and just runs away. Or literally, they're invading the space. She crashes through the wall, looks at him, says, bro, you died 8 years ago, and then just runs away. And it's like it's so fragmented. Like, there's good twists along the way, but there's no flow to it that makes me invested. And part of that is not having the characters that I'm glued to. So I don't know. And then, like you said, go for it.
I think the anime was just better when it was simpler and slower, honestly. Like, I know maybe at times it was too slow, but I feel like that was later in the show. Like, I really enjoy a simple story, and when you layer on cool action scenes with robots in a simple story, things suddenly start to work for me, I think. And in the beginning of the show, it was, we're testing these mechas, and we're going to sell them to both opponents at war at the same time, and we're going to use the data, to test the, we're going to use the data in our own research and all this, and all that made sense. And then you get a couple cool battle scenes, and that's really great, and that's pretty compelling. And I'm even down with them I'm even down with the dancing and them trying to summon and all this, because the no dancing, they tried to do something interesting, but I think you guys are right. The second half, the second core, I guess, it's just too political. It's too dry. It's too much. And I think that's where I started to lose it. Because I think if I was just watching the first core of this, I think I'd give it a decent score probably, because I actually enjoyed like a lot of the action and things like that. But even when that's
quickly here,
and that's even with the dry characters.
You say the dancing is an important part, and in the last episode, they don't even dance.
They don't dance.
Like it's wild to me. Like it's like the show just forgets a lot of what it's doing.
I feel like there's a pun here that I'm missing.
No, it's just they do
just
the summoning without.
No, I mean, there's got to be some line about like who killed the dance or something like that.
I mean, I guess they really did no dance.
Yeah. But it's funny because, and by funny I mean not funny. They do this like summoning ritual like 7 times, but they never commit to it. They always like pull away. It's like if Yu-Gi-Oh collected all the parts of Exodia and it was like, I'm just gonna shuffle the deck and not play it. It's like they get so close, and I get you want to save your big card for the very end. You don't want to show Godzilla right away. You got to have the big reveal, but it never comes about in any satisfying way. And once they transition from cool mechs, cool robots to this whole corruption, desire, how should Japan be run? How should it exist with other folks? Like
the edgelord politicians.
Dude, the fact that we have an entire arc about the price of wheat, like, what are we doing? Like, how is this where we're going with?
Well, they're trying
to
they're trying to destabilize the government,
right? But I mean, I know what they're trying to do. Like, but I'm just saying, as far as when you're writing a story, like, how is that the thing that you're like, what we're gonna do for these next few episodes? We're gonna talk about the price of wheat and how we can destabilize a nation by like overcharging, and then we're gonna have characters talk about like, well, how can I make pasta if the wheat is so expensive? Like,
but how is Japan like a sword that's cutting through the wheat? How can we make that? Yeah,
it's just it's like they had an idea of something that they wanted to do, and the show reads like a textbook. It reads like a history book, where it's just like this happened, then this happened, then this happened. But they're not like diving into the characters at all. They're not giving us like enough of a reason to stick around and to be interested in what's going on. It's just telling us things that happened, and most of these things are not very interesting. So I don't know. I just feel like they had an interesting enough concept. They were on the right track, but then they forgot that they're actually making a piece of entertainment.
Yeah. Can we talk about the two things I love about this show?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Sure.
One is, I touched it on earlier, the mechanical designs.
Mm.
All the way, every time they show Yushiro in the cockpit, like fiddling with the little thumb drive, like that was awesome. I love the engineering of how do you get in and out of a robot? Well, they'll bend over, okay, and they climb into them. And they make these little stands that, like, you can see how the robot's, like, lower to the ground. And those same stands are used from, like, dropping from planes so they can, like, there's just...
Yeah.
It's very mindful and very deliberate. And that's that good old 90s sunrise mech designs that you just don't get nowadays that are so tactile and satisfying. That was a better character, aka all the robots, than any of the humans.
Pushing buttons inside of a cockpit.
Oh my goodness.
I'm
Turning
so
on lights,
down
flipping switches.
Yeah. I'm so down for all. It's so
give me
simple
that.
and weird, but it's like it's so satisfying and cool at the same time.
Yeah. We all know Mitsuki loves to flip a switch.
Oh yeah.
I love the,
I just
especially in the
stifled an
first half of the show, a lot of the kind of overall information is told through news broadcasts. I love all the different media logos that they have to kind of like replicate stuff in the real world. It was all clever, but they had like local newscasts, national newscasts, and they all had a different like production level design. That was really good.
Yeah.
Episode 5, there's a guy giving a presentation, and he reaches behind him on the wall to like go to the next slide, and you can see him fumble with the paper, like to try to grab a piece of it. Like these very minute things are so tasteful. And honestly, the directing for the first half, phenomenal. You see the world not just in the static frame doing like shot, reverse shot kind of stuff. Like you see it through lenses, screens, you see reflections, you see it through scans. Sometimes we're in the world like a fly on the wall, like the camera is like turning as if on like a creature's spine as we look from character to character, but sometimes it's through a computer program. We're part of the matrix of Intel. Like the show presents this really kind of simple world in a very vast and diverse way, which made it interesting. And then as the show went on and got vast and diverse, the directing kind of got a little bit more stale. And it still had cool transitions, but it kind of reversed in interest of the show itself and kind of lost me.
Well, they're trying to stitch together with the media. I like your point about the media, the news, because it's like, think about the modern world. It's like, oh, there's a war happening in the Middle East or whatever. Well, we're all going to consume that through the TV, right? For the most part. And it's like they're trying to stitch together, and especially in the 90s. I mean, there was no one on Twitch or whatever. Or not Twitch, like Twitter, whatever it is. So
there's nothing immediate.
So they're really painting the full picture of the world and treating you as like somebody sitting in your living room watching all this happen. So I really appreciated that. So I'm glad you mentioned that because I might not have said it. So it was good.
And I do think the show aged well with its talks on like the mechanics of the robots through AI, how, much the government really knows and keeps from its citizens and uses that to leverage power for better or worse. Like, I think it really holds true in a lot of ways as much today as it does 2 decades ago. And I do applaud that. I just wish, I think we can all agree, it just wasn't entertaining very often. So I appreciate what it does on a lot of levels. I just didn't enjoy.
Yeah, the concepts are sound. Like whether it's the conflict or the military conflict and how, like you were saying, that's pretty unfortunately timeless. Or governments and corporations manipulating of stocks and things like that. Like, this is all interesting stuff and it's cool to see a show that is making those connections to reality. But yeah, like you said, it just forgot to be entertaining a lot of times.
Yeah.
Boy, I'm trying to think.
I do
what
have
else.
a theory on Blade Runner.
Yeah, let's hear your
Oh,
Blade
let's hear
Runner.
your theory,
theory.
yeah.
So it's not a Blade. So my I wrote it in the Discord chat we have, and I just basically said, it feels like the director saw Blade Runner and said, I could do that as a mech anime series. And I say this because, and I only say this because at one point the eldest brother essentially
The true
says,
villain of the show.
basically,
If you were to dilute it to one guy, yeah.
essentially, he says something to the effect of, your ideals are basically as futile as tears in the rain. And I'm like, I think he said something to that effect. At least that's what the sub said.
Yeah.
So, and it kind of makes sense that you would think that, okay, if he's doing like a loosely based version of Blade Runner, right? Like a lot of the struggles in Blade Runner are about the sense of self and who we are as a person, which definitely mirrors the Miharu Yushiro struggle that they're kind of having. Side note, I kind of hate that they just like brain fried her for
I was gonna
no
say,
reason in the middle of
she
the
was
show.
one of the more compelling characters, and they're like, what if she just gets really broken mentally? Just
For
like
no reason.
But,
I thought
like-
I missed something, but yeah. Yeah, but so essentially, and it doesn't go for like a neon futuristic style. It's like, let's what if we took that concept of like the sense of self, and if we are actually what we are, and like, am I a replicant or whatnot, and like do it with the main character. I mean, there's a whole cool mecha aesthetic, and it's like a living mech, which is like a cool concept. Yeah, that's more or less where I got it. It's like they said that one line, and I can sort of see where they were going, and I feel like they were trying to deconstruct it a little bit. And I feel like and in a weird world, I really feel like if we got a 50-episode version of this show, it actually would be a much stronger show, like in a really crazy world. Because a
Maybe.
lot of my issues with the show, and where I find like I have issues, is that a lot of the stuff that happens, they're just like, oh, by the way. Like, it feels a lot of like, oh, by the way, I'm mad at the entire world because I'm not a Kai. So, and I really wanted it because family legacy, and I can't have it, so I'm just gonna say screw the world. Oh, by the way, the reason you guys are this way is because you killed your brother. Oh, by the way, they kind of act this way. And I feel like that's where I feel like some of the issues are, and I feel like if they flesh some of these out a little bit longer, which is wild to say given one of my issues is the pacing, I think it's actually a much stronger show because I think they have the time to get to all the points that they want to hit, and these reveals don't feel kind of as a matter of fact and more like organic.
Yeah, it's the thing I've talked about before that the South Park creators talk about. When you're writing an episode, event A happens. Because of event A, event B happens. That causes event C. Instead of event A and then event B and then like you're just reading it off a line, and it just doesn't flow well. And I do kind of like the brain barf of Ava like actually making a point of things at the very end with really abstract visuals and stuff because I'm a weirdo. It was a little too late for me, and I think the first bit was good. Last little stretch maybe okay, but
I might have
I'm
missed
as
it.
exhausted thinking about this show as everything else. What's that?
Were they just like, we got too big for our britches and then we kind of like sealed ourselves off by accident, and then they're just waiting for
like,
someone
they
to just like free them?
Yeah, they were just monitoring our main characters because they were the most potential to unlock this godly power to bring about their wishes of grand immortality and being powerful.
Their
And he
sync
essentially
ratio
was
was
just
the
like,
highest.
but if I'm super powerful, then I won't be able to control my own future. So bye. And then they tag teamed like a 90 shonen of like, get out of my head. And then it was over. And then the sun rose on another review.
And it's set as well.
It was fine. Yeah. I said a lot. I could keep on going, but I think we're ready
I think we
to
should
review
score
this.
it.
What do you guys think?
It'd be nice to keep the show around 2 hours, so I think we should score it.
Yeah.
Kazuo.
Oh, boy.
The hero returneth. What do you
Let's
think?
see if I remember how to do this.
Oh, come on.
How do
know
numbers
damn
work,
right.
guys?
You know damn
Well,
right.
Let's talk
Honestly,
a little
you
bit
asked
more
that
about the
question.
price that
I
we-
doubt some people sometimes on this show.
Yeah, this show, I've said so much about it already, but it to me, unfortunately, in all the ways that it tried to present something, it failed, or at least didn't succeed in a way that I would consider to be passing or like memorable or recommendable. So for me with Gasaraki, I'm gonna have to give it, because there are some things that I like about it. Like I like the real kind of robot military intricacies. So I'm gonna say probably like right down the middle with a 2.5, 2.5 ancient giant robot beings out of 5 for me.
Andrew?
I thought you were going to go with the wheat metaphor, if I was being honest with your rating.
2.5
Bushels of wheat.
bushels.
Bushels of wheat. Yeah, no, I liked it and I didn't like it. I found it boring at times, but I thought it brought up some interesting concepts. The aesthetics are pretty on point. I like the mecha design, and I like a lot of the intricacies they did with the mecha animation. I think they did a lot of cool mecha moments, and I think it worked. And it's one of the things I really like about 90s mecha anime is just how things explode. It's not a fetish, don't worry. Not a hentai episode.
Not yet, it isn't.
So yeah, not yet indeed. So essentially, I would give this a 3 kugai on a box cover that actually don't end up really mattering out of 5.
Mason?
I am going to give this a 3 out of 5 because as harsh as we were on it, I think it was more of just we wanted it to be better. Like I felt like the potential was there. It had good ideas, and it failed on such a crucial level that it's amazing that the show wasn't a complete mess. Yes, it wasn't always entertaining. Yes, the characters were kind of potato-y, but nonetheless, especially watching this in 2024 when we don't get a lot of shows like this, it did feel not exhaustive despite it being a bit of a hard watch. And I enjoyed the fact that I got to watch it. I'm glad I watched it. I just wouldn't wish to ever watch it again. I'm sticking with 3 harks out of 5. Also, did anyone think that episodes ended kind of just suddenly? Just kind of like, and we're not, like, it felt very much like Yatagarasu from the current season, which I also like, but, the episode's over. Thank God is my first thought, and that's not a great sign, so 3 out of 5.
Yeah.
I give this anime credit for being ambitious. I think I have a hunch that Andrew's right. I think it was just rushed because they thought they had more time. It got like the Xeno Saga treatment. It was supposed to be 6 games. They got 3.
All his shows kind of feel like this. They all just kind of get weird and abstract and kind of end.
Well, if it wasn't, that's not what happened. It needed more episodes. But I do appreciate all the different types of, for all the fluffy, like mindless anime we get. It is kind of interesting to see one that actually tries to do the other style of storytelling, even if it did take too big of a bite. I did enjoy several other aspects of the show, but I'm just damn nostalgic about this time period, so I'm gonna give it 3 dust to dust.
It's a good song.
Ashes to ashes out of 5. I think it's watchable, but don't blink.
Yeah. I definitely felt like I was blacking out at times because I would just come to and be like, wait, what? What's going on?
Yeah.
I do feel like that 3 that I gave it is assuming I watched it at a leisurely pace over a month. I think having to cram this in and watch a couple episodes a day is not ideal.
We have all these new hosts, and they're all going to run away. Don't run away.
Not complaining there. I'm just saying, space this one out. This is a little bites at a time.
True.
You're stuck with me. Don't worry.
You had me at hello. Okay. Well, thanks, guys. That's our show for today. Big thanks to Kazuo and Andrew for jumping in and being great hosts. So do you guys have any particular like social medias or anything you want to promote?
Andrew?
Yeah, sure. So if you want to see a really cool picture of a 3D printed Frigimon that my friend made for me, you can follow me on Instagram at FrigimonFanatic, and that's basically where you can find me on most socials is at FrigimonFanatic. So that's on Twitter, formerly known as, you know what I mean.
And the last time I was here, I had one YouTube channel. Now I have two. So if you want to see my movie reviews, go to youtube.com/impressivetony. And if you want to see all my ramblings about tech and recommendations and reviews, go to youtube.com/thesparetechroom.
All right, Mason.
We're on Twitch and YouTube now, so if you want to join at either place, check it out. We'd love to have you. Thanks for listening. Thanks for putting up with us. Thank you, Mitz, for running the show so well. We'll see you next week.
I didn't crash the ship. That's my goal every time. Just don't let it sink. All right, guys. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for contributing, for listening. And next week, we'll see you. We're going to be doing Bartender next week. So we're back to the future, or the present, I guess. And getting damn hammered with it. We'll see you guys. Peace.
See ya.
Bye.